NFL, as we know it, is going through one of its biggest changes in more than a decade. Defenses are dropping a second safety deep, which hasn't been happening all the way back since Matt Stafford's rookie season. Then in the 2010s following that, the Legion of Boom era, where everybody switched to playing just one deep safety. And now back to today, the NFL has moved back to two high, creating a ton of ripple effects. When one player moves across the field, that affects every single one of the other 10. Even with blitz rates plummeting across the league last season, I don't think anybody would have predicted what we saw on opening night, the Bills literally not blitzing even once. Instead of sending extra defenders to pressure Stafford, the Bills only rushed 4, dropped everybody else into coverage, didn't blitz anybody, and held the Rams to a measly 10 points. So today, let's figure out exactly how they did it. To kick it off, we'll start by defining exactly what is a blitz, which is when the defense sends more than 4 pass rushers at the quarterback. This is different than a pressure, which PFF defines as any time the quarterback is disturbed from his normal throwing motion from setup to release. And against the Bills, Stafford finished with a 38% pressure rate and 7 sacks, extremely high for not at all getting blitzed. The pressure was coming quick, but just from 4 guys, so the true key to the Bills' game plan was playing great coverage with the back 7 and using great disguise. They started with 2 deep safeties 89% of the game, which you would have never seen a couple years ago, where sometimes they'd rotate down into 1 high, other times they'd stay in 2 high, and when they did, they took away any of the deeper stuff the Rams wanted to use. Stafford had the 27th highest average depth of target at just 6.2, and the Bills knew if they could just get him to hesitate for a split second by disguising their coverages, the pressure would get home. In cover 2 zone, you have your 2 deep safeties, which helps free up some of the responsibility on the cornerbacks since they don't have to cover anything vertical. This allows them to get hands on the receivers, bumping them at the line, and makes the quarterback hesitate since his guy isn't open and throws off his timing. Starting in 2 high and then rolling down or staying deep messed with Stafford pre-snap, but the Bills had other ways to confuse him too. They also mixed up their man-zone tells just to get him to hold the ball even a little longer. Here they're presenting just a 1 high safety with what clearly looks like man coverage. Cornerbacks are on receivers, linebackers on running backs. Each guy is staring at his assignment, they're tight in coverage. This screams man in every possible way. When the Rams motion Darrell Henderson across, watch Matt Milano put up his arm. This appears to be to tell each defender to bump over to take Henderson, which is actually a 1 high tell in zone since you only have 4 underneath defenders, but Milano is raising his hand just to fool Stafford. They drop into this crazy cover 2 zone with Taron Johnson playing a deep half, and the exotic look flusters Stafford. From his perspective, he's motioning Henderson away from Allen Robinson to get the one-on-one matchup on the slant against Dane Jackson because he thinks it's man coverage. And when he sees Milano put his arm up, he now figures it's some sort of 1 high, probably zone. When they drop 2 deep, there's more underneath coverage, the slant is taken away by Milano falling back into the window, and the quick pressure turns into a QB hit and a punt. Because the Bills were getting so much pressure, the Rams had to run a lot of short, quick game concepts just to even have a chance to get the ball out. Every NFL team runs what's called PSLs, which stands for a pre-snap look, where depending on if there are 2 deep safeties or 1 deep safety, that's the side the quarterback will attack. Up top is the Rams' 2 high beater, which will vertically stretch out the cover 2 flat defender, but would be a dead concept against 1 high cover 3. That's what they're playing. And then at the bottom is the Rams' 1 high beater, where they'll try and vertically stretch this hook dropper with the domino concept, which we'll continue to see. I know that was a lot of info, but to simplify it, if Stafford sees these guys stay deep, he'll look up top, and if he sees one drop down, he'll look at the bottom. It is critical, especially against veterans who have seen it all, to not tip any of these rotations pre-snap, because then they'll just pick you apart. But the Bills are so well coached, they don't give anything away. When a safety is rotating down, there needs to be space on the second level for him to rotate into. Poorly coached defenses would have Taron Johnson already shifted over, providing a pre-snap tell for Stafford. But when Johnson gives nothing away until the very last second, this makes Stafford just that much more uneasy, and he throws a little too early, sailing the ball over Kupp's head. You can see him wanting to manipulate Tremaine Edmunds to try and get him to take the cheese underneath to create a window, but when the left guard gets torched at the line, which happens all day, Stafford gets a little erratic. He knew the next time he'd have to really stress Edmunds to get him out of that domino window, but against quick pressure and tighter coverage, those make everything just harder. This is nearly the exact same look in every way. Same concept up top, same domino concept at the bottom, Taron Johnson disguising the coverage, and Stafford sensing the pressure, not feeling comfortable, and making an errant throw. If you watch his helmet, you can see him look at the rotating safety, realize he has to come back to the right since it's one high, picks up Edmunds with his eyes, tries to do the no-look thing he did in the Super Bowl to create some extra space, gets pressured, that causes the ball to sail, and this time gets intercepted. Against the same exact look again against the same exact coverage, Johnson disguising, the usual. This time Stafford decides he's not that guy and he'll just throw the underneath sit route, but the Bills make an insane play, and at that point all you can do is throw your hands in the air. To counter these late one-high safety rotations, the Rams went to their naked series, which Stafford, Goff, Cap and Kirk, everybody who's played quarterback for Sean McVay has dominated with, but the Bills were ready for that too. The idea behind this concept, if they are playing one high, is to have one receiver run off the corner, another running a deep cross, and usually a running back or somebody to the flat. This is great against one high coverages since nobody is there for the crosser, and if the safety starts cutting the crosser, you can start dialing up some double moves for the receiver back inside. So what do the Bills do? They do cut the crosser and have the cornerback fall off to the post. This isn't actually too crazy of an adjustment, but watch how well Dane Jackson is coached to be ready for the double move. This creates a double team on Kupp and on A-Rob, and there's nowhere to throw at all. The Rams couldn't hit anything against the Bills' one-high rotations and couldn't throw anything deep when they were in two-high. Stafford had to keep dinking and dunking over and over, which explains why his ADOT was so low. And even when they tried to run two-high beaters, the Bills always seemed to be one step ahead. In a lot of two-high coverages, when three receivers are lined up to one side, the Mike linebacker is usually asked to carry three up the middle, since generally the safety is responsible for two and the cornerback generally for one. So knowing the Bills kept playing too high, McVay thought he'd try and take advantage. I've thrown a lot of different nerdy football stuff at you guys today, so we won't dive too far into what Nick Saban calls Cover 7 Stubby. We'll just look at Tremaine Edmunds' assignment within Saban's Arkham Asylum of coverage. McVay is anticipating Edmunds will carry Kupp deep, so he'll then have Higbee on this little now slant underneath to attack that space. But in Cover 7 Stubby, Edmunds posts up the number 3 receiver and then takes the first in. That might be Kupp, Tutu Atwell, or Higbee. So when Kupp goes too far vertical, Edmunds snaps his eyes inside, sees Higbee, and what was supposed to be a layup 5-yard pickup turns into a sack. Cover 7 is really a quarters coverage, so when the Rams tried to run quarters beaters, the Bills used a crazy rotation to snuff it out and take away all of their options. We should also quickly go over what the Bills did in the run game. It was pretty interesting, since when playing two high safeties all the time, you're down a guy in the box. And just like what the 49ers did against Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs, like we talked about a few weeks ago, the Bills shifted their defensive tackle into a two-eye technique over the inside shoulder of the guard, instead of a one technique with him over the outside shoulder of the center. Double teams are extremely important in McVay's zone blocking scheme since he doesn't want to leave his guards on islands against massive defensive tackles. So this adjustment by the Bills put the center in conflict. If he quickly moves off the two-eye, that leaves him to blow up the run against a guard that can't block him. Or, like we'll see on this next play, if he and the right guard and right tackle hold their doubles, the linebackers fly through the line and ruin the play. pass rush wise, they didn't do anything too crazy. They used some load fronts to put 3 on one side of the ball and used some stunts to try and cause a little confusion. But basically every one of their guys were more powerful and faster than every one of the Rams linemen. And when you have that, paired with great coaching and execution in the back 7, you're gonna win a lot of games. I don't think the big takeaway from this game is that the Rams were horrible or the Bills were really good. Okay, the Bills might be really good. But the fact that defenses are getting more and more comfortable dropping 7 and not blitzing is what I think is most important. 2 high safety coverages take a safety out of the box and stick him deep, so now you have one less guy closer to the box, so it makes it a little harder to stay sound if you're bringing the blitz. We will continue to see these 2 high ripple effects permeate throughout the league as we carry on into the season and future. And with defenses blitzing less and less, that means offenses should have more time to hold the ball and let things develop deep. The answer to defenses playing more passive than ever is to dink and dunk and bide your time. Then when you force them to move up, you knock them down by going deep. Quarterback play was already at a premium, now that's more than ever. So with these new defensive trends already spread throughout the league, it's time for the offense to stand up and fight back.